Hey everybody, who's your Jedi here with another review for you. This time talking episode 17 of Supergirl called Manhunter. And of course, this is the big fallout to Martian Manhunter being publicly outed and Cat taken into custody by the DEO. And as a character piece on John, this is a pretty good episode, and it works really nicely for characterization in terms of Alex and to a lesser degree Kara. But I just really didn't feel in a lot of ways that this was one of the stronger episodes this season. Before we get into all of that, let's take care of the subplot with Siobhan. And I wasn't really impressed by this. This was going on here. This felt really, really weak. One, Siobhan, after having been fired, just being able to stroll right back into Catco seems a little bit weird. And then she sends this nasty email to Cat, and in this day and age, I don't think we know. I know of anybody who hasn't had somebody's who doesn't know somebody who's had their email account hacked or their Facebook account hacked or oh no, my jerk little brother got into my Facebook account and posted a bunch of nasty comments and stuff. I mean, we all know somebody that's happened to. And then Siobhan just sort of expects the Cat is going to accept this wildly out of character email from Kara at face value. And this is all topped off by when they bring in Win to explain how they caught Siobhan having done this. And it's this ridiculous keystroke thing matching Kara's typing speed. It's like, you made that explanation way too complicated. You could have just said, we traced which computer this was sent from, and then we checked the security camera footage to see who sent it because we knew Kara wasn't here that day. I mean, really. We get it. We understand at this point that Win is very, very smart. Now, I have been one to. Sorry, got something on my keyboard. To rant repeatedly about Cat Grant's tendency to do things that are morally questionable and at times flat out illegal. Here, Siobhan is pretty well guilty of being blacklisted, which last time I checked is almost certainly illegal. On the other hand, Siobhan really got caught doing stuff that was, again, monstrously against, well, basically a monstrous violation of her, employment agreement. And as was pointed out by Win in this episode, doing that thing with Kara's email might have possibly constituted mail fraud, which is a federal offense. Now, I don't know about the legalities of all of that. It's just no, you don't really want to mess around with stuff, do illegal stuff with the mail because the mail is handled by the U.S. Postal Service, which is a branch of the federal government, which again means if you do stuff like that, you're breaking federal law, and that's when the government can really come in and step on your neck. So yeah, that Siobhan is guilty of this, yeah, that's gonna hurt. Now, I don't know about how I'm not super up on how non-disclosure agreements work, but a big thing with when somebody calls to check a resume reference is, would you hire this person again? And if the answer is no, then yeah, you usually cannot say, oh, because they did this person did this. Now, granted, if they did something that was against the law, then I think you have a little bit more leeway. I'm not super clear on the precise legalities of that, but yeah, Cat's definitely guilty, almost certainly, of doing everything within the scope of the law to, in regards to Siobhan, and probably just some good old-fashioned illegal blacklisting as well. But on the other hand, Siobhan has done a whole bunch of stuff which totally pretty much totally deserves this. I mean, she has really just crossed the line repeatedly, and it was pretty hilarious to see Kat absolutely rip her a new one. And I can't. I have to say that I found myself nodding more than a little bit during Kat's rant about millennials. Once again, I am extremely grateful that I came of age in the days before Facebook and Twitter and Tumblr were really a thing. Uh, yeah. that whole everybody gets a trophy thing. That is such bullshit. It's bullshit. Congratulations, you proved yourself adequate. Alrighty, but my crusty old man rantings aside, let's go on. Oof. Sleep well, my back. Ugh. Okay, so let's move on to the main plot. And there's this whole, oh, hey, turns out Hank Henshaw was really an alien. Well, as you can imagine, this results in a massive thing of nasty stuff hitting the fan. One thing I didn't like is they bring in this Marine guy. I guess the actor who played Sam Lane was not available this episode. Or, having father-daughter military investigation team would have been a little too much. Also, not exactly sure if Lucy could have just re-enlisted in the military so easily, but we're going to let that slide. Anyway, they bring in this guy, and his name is James Harper. And I hear that, I'm like, Harper? Is this guy supposed to be Roy Harper's dad or something? Now, the name is probably just meant to be a coincidence. But again, if you're familiar with the DC universe and you hear the surname Harper, Roy Harper, aka Speedy, aka Arsenal, aka Red Arrow, is going to be the first person that your mind jumps to. Now, granted, it's not an uncommon name and is a very popular one for fictional, characters in shows like this. But still, of all the last names you kind of go with, you went with something that's immediately going to make your people's minds jump to a character that it was on Arrow just a couple of the other month as a guest star and had been a reoccurring character on that show for quite some time. Yeah. And, Harper is just basically Hank Henshaw 2.0. And, you know, I was a little disappointed that John never kind of said, like, that look of hatred that's on your face right now. That's the exact same look Hank had on his face, even though I had never actually done anything. And, you know, the whole thing with the mission in Peru. Well, let's be clear. As I understand it, the DEO is a branch of the United States government, and they ramble on and on about protecting the world. Well, if you're going to protect the world, you are going to have to go to other places besides the United States, where the American government totally does not have authority. I mean, like here in this episode, Peru is a sovereign nation. Sending Black Ops teams there, well, okay, I mean, like sending Black Ops teams to foreign countries is something governments all around the world totally do. But still, if they'd been caught at this, the Peruvian government would have raised an enormous stink behind the scenes. Then again, I don't really think Peru is really tricked out to do with, in terms of military technology, to deal with something like, aliens. So, yeah, but again, we've also seen repeatedly that the DEO cares F all about the law and constitutional rights and all this other stuff, as evidenced by the whole lie detector scene with Alex, where she passes, totally ignoring the fact that lie detectors are, one, not particularly reliable, which is why, two, lie detector results are not admissible in a court of law, and three, it's well known that people can be taught how to beat lie detectors. And completely unrelated, number four, the guy who invented the lie detector is also the person who created Wonder Woman. Like, no lie, the guy who created the lie detector was the writer who created Wonder Woman. Cool, huh? And if you ever want to read some interesting stuff if you ever read about that guy, he's a really interesting person who was also into some really, really weird stuff in his private life, which probably explains some of the more eccentric elements of Wonder Woman's past history. Again, this is, go read about it, but still, it's sort of like, whoa, that guy was a all right. But anywho, I love how, Lucy, who's all about, this basic military lawyer, is like, she beat the lie detector. I think she's lying. Take her into custody anyway. It's like, okay, we have absolutely no evidence, but we're going to drag her off to this Project Cadmus, again, a place that has some serious history in the DC universe, and we're just gonna make her apparently a human test subject in this. I mean, we don't have the slightest bit of evidence, but this person in the investigation thinks she's lying, so yeah, we'll totally take that as evidence. This is like, really? All it takes is basically somebody going, I still think you're lying, so yeah. That strikes me as being kind of BS. I mean, again, we've talked about how the government in this sort of situations don't really care about the law or rights or whatever, but still, that they can just go like, I'm not buying it. Off to the Joseph Mengele dissection lab for you, American citizen. Gosh. Um, Now, I did like how they sort of take this opportunity to mention that, yeah, the whole Project Cadmus and all the bad stuff they do is the reason why Superman doesn't work with the government. That's cool. Superman is all kind of gone back and forth, but in modern times, he generally avoids sort of anything that can make him seem like an agent of the government. And if you've ever read The Dark Knight Returns, you can see what happens when that goes away. Where in that story, Superman is basically a government stooge. And again, it's Frank Miller and okay, whatever. But yeah, you'd think is like, okay, so Superman knows about this place. You'd think that finding a way to shut down Project Cadmus would be a little bit higher on his list of priorities. But okay, all the sort of things that you would think would make Superman say, maybe I should just pick up the phone and see what's going on. I mean, yeah, he has promised Kara, unless you ask me for my help, I'm going to stay out of National City. But again, Supergirl going on a rampage, something like his friend being taken prisoner by the government, all stuff that you would think would make Superman say, like, hey, Kara, you need a hand on this? Or, like, hey, we should work together to deal with this situation. But again, it's Supergirl's show, so yeah. Anyway, I did really like that they kind of made a nod to the Martian Manhunter's love of junk food. Although I guess the Choco, whatever the hell he was eating, when I always remember the Martian Manhunter being very fond of Oreos. Now back in the day, they could never explicitly say Oreos, but I mean, it was always the cookies with the cream in it, and it was very obvious what it was. Um, yeah. But anyway, the whole flashback scene. Um, Alex, Alex's and Kara's dad being alive. I mean, this never really was anything that I wasn't expecting, and I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this before. I mean, you don't bring somebody like Dean Cain in to the show for something penny ante, like a couple little cameos here and there. You're gonna do something important with him because basically back in the '90s, he was Superman in most people's minds, and quite a bit thinner, but uh, you know, time passes, huh? But anyway, I did like his interactions with John, and the way they struck up that bond seemed very genuine. Although the whole "protect my girls," it's like you've known this guy for a couple of hours at best. Isn't this a little sudden? But oh gee, excuse me. It's the sake of brevity. I mean, this is a show that only has like 42 minutes or so to tell the story, so sometimes you just kind of have to let little things like that go. Um, yeah, let's see. Anything else? I definitely did like the way they handled the breakout of Alex and John from the truck. The whole thing with the bikes and all that. I mean, it seemed really, really reminiscent of some of the stunts they've pulled on Arrow. One thing though, it's like Martian Manhunter mind wipes Harper, but apparently they don't do anything to the two guys who were driving the truck. It's like, well, I hope no one questions those guys about what happened. I mean, okay, presumably John also mind wiped them off screen, but it's like, still, maybe you should address that. The whole flashback thing with Alex, I wasn't really too impressed by that. And the whole flashback scene with young Kara, that I thought was done a lot better. Seeing her in her early days adjusting to life on Earth, how she got the glasses and all of that, that worked really well. Um, and the whole her saving the mom and the kid, and her subsequent talk with her father about the fallout of that. Again, that was nicely handled, and I like how there was a nod to Curt Swan in there. The boy that Alex is talking to says, "We're going to Swan Beach." Well, again, Curt Swan, old-time DC comic book artist, very well known for being one of the best Superman artists basically ever. So that, and of course, the character of Dr. Swan on Smallville was even named after him. So that's a easy to miss, but very nice little nod there. Although, for the record, my personal favorite Superman artist, who did like regular stuff in the comics, is Dan Jurgens. Now, Alex Ross, whenever he does Superman, that's awesome. And I've actually met Alex Ross in person too. That was cool. Let's see. What else? What else? What else? Um, Yeah. Oh, yeah. The whole thing with Siobhan getting powers at the end. Well, I'm familiar with the character from the comics, so I know what's coming. I'm not really. I'm interested to see the explanation for. Hey, where did those superpowers come from? But I guess we'll get that explanation next week. So again, there were definitely moments in this episode that I felt were kind of weak. Oh yeah, the whole Lucy finding out about Kara's secret. That was pretty well handled. I do have to admit, like that. I like that. You know, Lucy's like, "Oh my God, how did I not put together before?" And it also kind of like, okay, you know what? I probably have been letting myself be blinded by my own insecurities and fear. If I stop and look at the whole picture here, what I know of both Kara and Supergirl, I can't go along with this anymore. So that was also pretty well done. I'll give the show credit on that one. And yeah, I think that covers it for this episode. All right, guys. So until next time, please comment, rate, and subscribe. Of course, you can also follow me on Twitter at Hoosier Jedi, and please also join me on Tumblr at Jedi Reviewer. Until next time, take care and have a good one.